What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and Dr. Ethan Turner back for week 5. The injury report, which continues to get larger and larger, and I'm starting to think there's something happening here on purpose. I think Ethan is just making all these injuries happen because he wants to have more time in front of the camera.
I cannot confirm nor deny that I like being in front of this camera. I'll just be honest.
I mean, you don't like the camera because it gives you a lot of troubles, but being in front of it, you like.
Yeah, the camera and I do not have a good relationship, but Headliner Nation and I have a great relationship. So
Perfect.
It all works out pretty well.
Perfect. Well, I'm trying to put my happy face on, Ethan. I'm trying as hard as I can to be happy because this past week I was not happy. I lost my Chubb, which, I mean, is a major blow to my Chubb. I mean, it is just, I was not happy whatsoever.
The flags are standing at half Chubb.
Yeah, half Chubb right now. I mean, it's just not good.
Absolutely. Before we get to that, though,
okay,
we need to have a moment of silence.
Yes, we do. We have one member for the Moment of Silence Club.
One member, moment of silence for O.J. Howard. I'll be honest, this one hurt me a lot. I was a big O.J. Howard fan. I really had big hopes for him. I thought he was going to be the guy. He hasn't become the guy. 3 seasons, he's ended on IR, ends again on IR. This time, much worse. Achilles rupture. Thank you for your service, O.J. Howard. We will see you in 2021.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. And it doesn't end there. We have some big names that we're going to be talking about. In fact, we have so many names it almost filled up my entire sheet of paper here. So let's go ahead and start off, Ethan, at the top. Some of the bigger names that a lot of people have questions about. We've already mentioned Nick Chubb, so let's just talk about this one and get it out of the way.
Yeah, Nick Chubb is dealing with an MCL sprain. He got placed on IR. Typically, you're looking at about a 4 to 6 week recovery time for this. The team actually has a week 9 bye, so I'm expecting that Nick Chubb comes back after that. So you're looking at about week 10. This is a huge blow. Obviously, anytime you lose a running back for any big chunk of the season, your fantasy team is going to be hurting. The one upside, I guess, is that Kareem Hunt is now potentially a league winner, or at least a locked in RB1 for the rest of the next 6 weeks.
Yep.
Which I'm sure some people are happy about that, but I don't know very many people that stack Chubb with Kareem Hunt. So we're missing out on Chubb for sure.
Yep, absolutely. I hate to lose my Chubb, but another guy that went down this week that made a lot of people go son of a was Austin Ekeler. Now, especially in those PPR leagues, Austin Ekeler started off slow week 1, and ever since then, highly involved in the offense. We loved him with Justin Herbert under center, and he took himself a painful injury, what looked like there on Sunday.
This one hurt me. Personally, I invested heavily in Ekeler this year. I really thought he was the cheapest bell cow back that you could buy. Hamstring strain, he got placed on IR. Again, IR means 3 weeks this year, so it's a little bit different. But this one looks like a pretty significant hamstring strain. They're calling it a grade 2. I would say it was probably closer to a grade 3. But you're looking at a recovery time of about 6 weeks. The Chargers have a week 10 bye, so a little bit longer. And again, I think we're probably looking at the week after that as the most likely time for Ekeler to return. But you're going to be needing a backup. You're looking at Josh Kelly. You're looking at Justin Jackson. Those 2 guys are going to have to carry the load here. I actually think Jackson fits Eckler's role a little bit better. Hopefully you picked him up on waivers. I'm not sure that he was a popular choice. But if you scan the waiver wire and you see one of those 2 names, make sure you pick them up because we're not sure exactly how this is going to play out yet.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot of volume up for grabs in that offense. Julio Jones. Think he screwed a lot of people over last week. I mean, we weren't really expecting too much from him. He ends up going out there starting and not finishing the game. Is it just going to be one of those things where maybe they need to shut him down a few weeks?
I think they're going to have to. He's dealing with a hamstring strain. He re-injured the strain. This is what I warned everyone about when we talk about hamstring strains. The most likely time for them to re-injure is when they first come back. And so even when they first come back and you're all excited and you want to plug this guy into your lineup, you have to understand that there is a risk that this exact situation happens. re-aggravated it, only played half the game. I'm expecting him to miss this week, potentially even next week, as now the team has to take a step back and go, okay, are we doing what's best for the short term, or are we looking long term with this? And Julio Jones is a major part of this offense. Obviously, Calvin Ridley benefits the most, but some of these other secondary pass catchers, Hayden Hurst, all these guys are going to get a bump without Jones there. But they're also going to get knocked a little bit because Jones took so much coverage. So it'll probably even out pretty closely. I think you're going to see what you saw this week, where some guys are going to step up, and we're not really sure which one it is on which week.
Well, one guy who didn't step up was Calvin Ridley, who you just mentioned. I heard the name Olamide Zaccheaus a lot more than I heard Calvin Ridley this past week. Should we be worried about Ridley, or was this just kind of, hey, he wasn't 100% going forward, he'll be better?
Yeah, he was dealing with an ankle sprain before. I still think he was feeling the effects of that ankle sprain. A huge dud. Obviously, you hate to see a dud, but he's still getting a ton of targets. Expect those targets to keep coming his way. As far as last week, when Julio went out, the Packers were really able to key in on Ridley. I truly believe that Ridley is a player that benefits tremendously from having a Julio Jones on the other side to take double coverage, because his route running is the way that he wins, and his speed. And so when you now become double covered, you're going to lose some of that effectiveness. So I think that's what happened with Ridley in the second half. He was never able really to get it going. I think he's going to play, but I think you should expect a bounce back game this week for sure.
All right, well, what about a team that looks like they're handling injuries correctly with their star wide receiver? What about Davante Adams, who the Packers look great? He hasn't even been out there. They've been able to rest him. Is Davante Adams getting the rest he needs now to come back and just make an already great Packers team even better?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen with Adams. They do have a bye week this week, so obviously you can't use him for fantasy. There was a chance that he could have played, so a full 2 weeks of rest. I fully expect him to be back after this bye week. I think the Falcons should probably take some notes. They should have probably waited a little bit with Julio, but the Packers are doing it the right way. They're being extra cautious. They know that a hamstring injury, like what Adams is dealing with, like what Julio is dealing with, can really derail an entire season if you don't handle it correctly. I think they're doing that. So Adams, expect him back after this bye week.
What about Josh Allen? He's somebody who took a big hit, actually landed kind of hard this past week. Are we concerned at all about Josh Allen going forward?
Allen left the game. He landed on his non-throwing wrist. The way he landed, though, I'm actually a little bit more concerned with his opposite shoulder. It kind of got jammed up. A lot of times that's the mechanism for like an AC joint sprain. I expect that this isn't going to affect if he plays or not. It may affect how aggressive he is at leading with that shoulder, but for the most part, Allen should be fine. He came back into the game. I'm not worried about this from a fantasy perspective. He's still going to be slinging it. He's still going to be running. He's still going to be a QB1.
Perfect. What about an update on somebody? It's not that we were all using him anyway, but what about Sony Michel?
Sony Michel got placed on IR. He's dealing with a quad strain or quad contusion. They're not super clear on what exactly he's dealing with. They placed him on IR, and they took Damian Harris off of IR, and he actually put up a pretty decent game on the ground. I expect Damian Harris to kind of be the leader as far as rushing attempts for this team. This team has moved into kind of this rushing offense, and I really expect that Damian Harris is going to be the guy that takes the majority of that workload. The problem is that you still have James White. You still have Rex Burkhead. Those guys are going to be taking most of the passes. So I don't think Damian Harris is like this, world-class waiver wire pickup, but I do think he's going to be able to be a serviceable running back as an RB2, RB3 week to week.
Plus, when Cam comes back, Cam's going to call his own number quite a bit.
Cam wants to get Cam involved.
Absolutely. Cam is Cam's favorite player. All right, so there's some of the big hitters. We're going to head into our rapid fire section. We got a lot of names to cover. And one of the first ones we're going to start with is a couple of teammates. What about Leonard Fournette and Chris Godwin?
Yeah, Fournette is dealing with an ankle sprain. He is doubtful for tonight's game. They play on Thursday. I'm not a big fan of playing guys coming off an injury on Thursday. I don't think you're going to have to make a choice. I'm sure even by the time this video gets released, we might learn that Fournette is not playing. Chris Godwin has already been ruled out with his hamstring strain. We're hoping if we give these guys another full 10 days of rest, that we'll be able to see them come back and be effective. I haven't been impressed with what Ronald Jones has given. I think he put up a decent game, but he just wasn't doing it for the past game. He's not as explosive as what Fournette is. Godwin, you're looking at Mike Evans, who's banged up too, but I expect to play. You're looking at Scotty Miller. Those two dudes are going to really step up without him on Thursday. I think they're both playable.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was a little bit banged up after this past week game there for Tampa Bay. What about DeAndre Hopkins, Arizona Cardinals?
DeAndre Hopkins was dealing with an ankle sprain last week. I thought he was just getting a veteran's rest day, and then he ended up missing Thursday and Friday's practice with it, so it's obviously more significant than what they were letting on. He missed, again, most of those practices last week, but he did manage to play. Hopkins has a history of playing through injuries, so I'm not surprised by that at all. I expect him to get more rest this week. Maybe you see some limited practice. Maybe you see some no practices. That's okay, but I think they're going to really take it easy with him and make sure that he is as healthy as possible to play. And again, Hopkins doesn't miss games, so you can expect him to put up decent numbers. I'm expecting a better game than this week, just because I do think he was a little bit more hobbled than originally I thought he was.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't just pretending. Maybe he didn't just want the rest. He was maybe hurting a little bit.
Yeah, I think he had to have been.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Jared Cook?
Jared Cook is dealing with a groin strain. He didn't practice at all last week, didn't play in week 4. I think we're going to have to kind of wait and see. I don't really expect him to play this week, but the team didn't really use Adam Troutman. They didn't really look towards the tight end without him. So I think it's one of those situations where it's Jared Cook or bust. So if Jared Cook isn't playing, you're going to have to look somewhere else for the tight end.
Perfect. What about Zach Moss in Buffalo?
Moss is still dealing with the turf toe. He was a game time decision last week. Didn't actually end up playing. I expect kind of a similar situation this week. I think they're going to hold him off intentionally. They're going to let Devin Singletary kind of take the load. So Devin Singletary is a great play in DFS, and obviously you're going to start him up in your lineups as a solid RB2 with some potential for touchdowns.
Yep. What about some teammates in Las Vegas? Bryan Edwards, Henry Ruggs.
Edwards is still dealing with an ankle sprain. I'm expecting him to actually miss another week. Ruggs, on the other hand, actually managed to return to practice, barring a setback. Now remember, he's dealing with a hamstring injury, so this is where he's most likely going to get hurt again or have a setback. I do think there's a chance that Ruggs plays on Sunday, but I don't necessarily think he's a great fantasy option this week coming off that hamstring strain, just because you're assuming a lot of risk.
Same thing with Julio, right? You're just assuming you're taking that gamble that he just can't make it the entire time. What about another couple of teammates? Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey.
Jackson's basically in the exact same situation that Ruggs was in. He's dealing with a hamstring strain. He could play, and he did practice, so I think there's a chance that he plays. But again, not a great fantasy option coming off of that. Alshon Jeffrey shouldn't probably be rostered, given that we have really no clarity on when he's going to come back. But he did manage to get a practice. They were just walking him through, but now he's getting actual practice time. I think that his return is imminent. The question is it imminent like 2 weeks from now or imminent like 2 months from now?
Yeah.
There's no real way to tell with Jeffrey. I'm not really picking him up and expecting anything out of him, but man, this team could really use him because they are just hurting all over the place from a wide receiver perspective. I mean, they don't have anybody.
Yep, they need somebody other than Greg Ward is what they need.
Yes.
I like this whole teammate thing we got going on. What about Jimmy G, Raheem Mostert of the 49ers?
Yeah, so the Niners are definitely another team that's banged up, but this team actually looks like they're on the up and up. It's kind of a rough start, but they're making things happen. They're not completely out of it as far as winning games. And we can't forget that this was a Super Bowl team last year. So Jimmy Garoppolo and Mostert returned to practice this week. I think it's unlikely that either one plays, but if I had to guess, Mostert manages to get on the field first. I think there's a chance that he plays, and going up against a bad Miami team, he's got some RB2 upside, similar to like Chris Carson last week, where if he plays, he may not play a full snap percentage, but there's a good chance that he could score a touchdown or two. And so you kind of have to put him in the lineup. I think Mostert has the best chance of playing, but I think that there's a good chance that both of these guys basically miss another week. and then come back next week.
I feel bad. I missed an Eagle. I mean, they're all hurt. It's kind of hard to forget about one. But what about Dallas Goedert? Let's throw him in there. What do we got on Goddard?
Dallas Goedert's dealing with an ankle sprain. He was placed on IR, and he could potentially be back in that 3-week kind of minimum. I've got my eye on actually week 10, though. The team has a bye in week 9. I think they're going to give him time to return. They're not exactly competing at the moment, but with how bad that division is, I guess there's a chance that they're still competing for a playoff. So they could try to push him back, but I really feel like with Goddard, because they have Zach Ertz, they're kind of insulated at the position. Obviously, they want him back, but I think they're going to take it a little easy with him.
Okay, what about a few of the big names that we're kind of just waiting on? Christian McCaffrey coming up next.
Christian McCaffrey. So he is still unlikely to play this week. So week 5, not really looking great. Highly unlikely that he plays. But there are some good reports coming out that we're looking at a week 6 potentially return in some capacity. I don't think it's going to be 100%. Mike Davis has actually produced pretty well for that team. But I do expect him to be CMC, that is, to be startable as soon as he's ready to come back. He's still the best running back in football, and you basically can't. I don't feel good telling someone not to play Christian McCaffrey if he's playing in the game. So you kind of have to go with it. But just know that we're eyeing either week 6 or at the latest week 7.
Perfect. What about Michael Thomas, another big name?
This one is kind of a mystery to me because I really thought he was coming back last week, and I apologize to Headliner Nation. I was convinced that he was coming back. All the signs showed that he was going to come back, and then he didn't. And it was kind of an instant, like, oh, by Friday, everything looked great, and then Friday, all of a sudden, nope, he's totally out. And I almost wonder if he didn't have a setback with his high ankle sprain. He's going to be a game time decision this week. I would not be banking on him returning. The team is good enough to win without him. They're going to keep passing the ball to everybody else, especially Alvin Kamara. And I just don't think they're going to need Michael Thomas back this week. They're going to take it safe. This is a Super Bowl contending team, and they're going to play it safe with their best player.
Yeah, plus it's a Monday night game too. So, I mean, that's a lot of risk to assume there. If you're banking on Michael Thomas playing Monday night and it doesn't happen, you could get caught with your pants around your ankles. Nobody wants to be caught with their pants around their ankles. In most situations.
No.
What about Phillip Lindsay? Is Phillip Lindsay coming back?
Phillip Lindsay actually did practice in full on Wednesday, so I do think he's coming back this week. He's a guy that I've been able to find on waiver wires. Teams getting upset with him. Melvin Gordon's playing well. Phillip Lindsay had a decent role last year in this offense. He was playing well, and they were splitting carries already. He's somebody that if he's sitting on waivers, you need to go pick him up because there's no reason if he's playing for him to be, potentially sitting on a waiver wire where somebody else is going to pick him up for free. That might as well be you. We've just spent a good 20 minutes talking about injuries. Obviously, this kind of stuff can happen. And if you have a Phillip Lindsay, he could be a league winner if something were to happen to Melvin Gordon. So he's a guy that I picked up all over the place for free, and I'm pretty ecstatic about it.
Yep, absolutely. Like you just said, we just spent about 20 minutes talking about injuries. There's a lot to go through, a lot of names, a lot of people dealing with stuff. We didn't even mention the possible COVID outcomes for the week. Those are things we're all watching still. It's a big headache on a weekly basis. But like usual, Ethan's going to have a comment. We're going to try to keep it pinned to the top of the video. We mentioned this last week. As soon as he updates it, it drops to the bottom. So look for it down below in the comment section. There's going to be a comment there from Ethan. Anytime we get an update, that's where we're going to go ahead and put it so you guys have the most up-to-date information. But Ethan, let's work on making this list a little bit shorter next week. How about that?
Hey, I'm going to do everything I can to keep these guys as healthy as possible from my couch. I'm going to give lots of praises, hoping that we can keep them healthy because obviously if this keeps up, I'm going to need a raise.
Yeah, because at this point, you are looking at a lot of people on a weekly basis. But the people out there enjoy it. We appreciate the support. The channel continues to grow, hitting at 106,000 right now, and we're still climbing. We're not stopping now. We're going to continue to go, and we couldn't do it without you. We greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, you guys had a great week. Good luck this weekend. Hopefully, everybody stays healthy for your teams. And for myself and Ethan, we'll talk to you later.